Cooked food versus raw food. Which is better? Hello, everybody. That's going to be our topic for today. For the past week, me and my brother have been researching it, so hopefully I can teach you a bit about it. My name's Adrian. My name's Sean, and let's begin. Okay, everybody. So now, before we start on getting on with comparing raw food and cooked food, which one's better, all that good stuff, we have to start off the origin. So basically, the history of this topic, and that is who first started cooking their food and when it was. So first, I'm just going to start by reading basically a summary I've written about Jennifer Welsh from Life Science, who is a journalist. She's written a article about basically new evidence that they found of who may have been cooking and when it was. So I'm just going to read it out for you. Jennifer Welsh from Life Science writes, "Our ancestors entered the kitchen 1.9 million years ago, according to new evidence that extinct hominids were cooking and processing their food." Now, hominids is another phrase for Homo erectus, which supposedly is the earliest iteration of human beings, this is around the Stone Age, which is 1.8 to 2.5 million years ago, around that time period. Anyway, I'll go on. The findings may also explain modern humans' small teeth. This isn't for sure because it's not clear enough evidence. Now, before I read on, I just want to show you the article and I'll read the page. So archaeologists find the earliest evidence of human cooking with fire. I will just tell you now, this isn't like 100% proof. As you'll see, they just find a fire pit. Okay, so at the base of a brush-covered hill in South Africa's Northern Cape province, a massive stone outcropping marks the entrance to one of humanity's oldest known dwelling places. Humans and our ape-like ancestors have lived in Wonderwerk Cave for 2 million years, most recently in the early 1900s when a farmed couple and their 14 children called it home. Wonderwerk holds another distinction as well. The cave contains the earliest solid evidence that our ancient human forebears, probably Homo erectus, were using fire. There still isn't 100% proof that we came from ape-like creatures, so that's why they're using terms like this. Anyway, we'll go on. Oh yeah, and it also says using fire, because they didn't actually find like cooking utensils and like any strong evidence, as you expect if it's this old. Like many archaeological discoveries, this one was accidental. Researchers weren't looking for signs of prehistoric fire, they were trying to determine the age of sediments in a section of the cave, while other researchers had found primitive stone tools. In the process, the team unearthed what appeared to be remains of campfires a million years ago, which was 200,000 years older than any other firm evidence of human-controlled fire. Their findings also fanned the flames of a decade-old debate over the influence of fire, particularly cooking, on the evolution of our species. At Wonderwerk, Boston University, archaeologist Paul Goldberg, a specialist in soil micromorphology, or the small-scale study of sediments, dug chunks of compacted dirt from the old excavation area. He then dried them out and soaked them in polyester resin so they would harden to a rock-like consistency. Once the blocks solidified, researchers sawed them together into wafer-thin slices. The eureka moment came later as the slices were examined under a microscope at Israel's Weizmann Institute. "Holy cow," Goldberg exclaimed, "there's ashes in here." So basically what they found was remains of a campfire site. So basically they, as you heard, they dug up dirt from the sites. They found old ashes there from a million years ago. So this doesn't prove anything about cooking. So yep, let's go on. Alright, so that's one opinion of the story, of the debate. So that basically the first people who were cooking were 2 million years ago, Homo erectus, like I said, earliest iteration of human beings supposedly. That's if you go off Darwin's theory of evolution. Some people also say it's around 500,000 years ago, but they all have sort of the same opinion. But this isn't any confirmed evidence. They say firm evidence, doesn't mean that's where they're cooking. Now, we have another side of the debates. Basically, people say it was 20 to 50,000 years ago, they say. And it was when China first started making kitchenware, all their, utensils, all this stuff, because that's basically the earliest evidence they have of people using tools for cooking, so that they assume that they must have been cooking. And also, around 40,000 years ago in Europe, there's evidence, basically there's ancient earth ovens, which a lot of cultures still use today, including Maori, Aboriginal, still places in Europe. If you didn't know what an earth oven is, I'll put one up on the screen now if I can. And yeah, so that's basically what it is. And we have firm evidence, so we know there had to be cooking at least around 40,000 years ago. But this is still just basing it off the most recent evidence that we have, you know. But yeah, so that's basically it. My opinion is that I don't think they started 2 million years ago because they would have seen no need. Because we can perfectly eat raw food now, you know. The only reason they say not to, which I'll get onto later, is because basically there's dangerous bacteria, but we'll get onto that later. The reasons they say they started to cook their food is basically because it's easier to digest. I don't know, because it's easier to digest fresh foods. But the reason they say it because cooking basically breaks down a lot of for vegetables, like the cell walls and things like that. So basically there's less to digest, but like we'll get onto later, it does kill a lot of other important things. So, and another reason is basically they started doing it to preserve the food. The people that say this are people that say we started around 50,000 years ago. So basically cooking the food because it lasts longer in general, cooking the food. And this does make a whole lot of sense. It's, in my opinion, that's what I think happened. It could have been longer than 50,000 years ago, but I doubt we did it. I find it hard to believe that we're actually cooking that long ago, but there's no firm evidence, so this is what my opinion is. Yep, so that's just a little backstory on when people start cooking, all the different opinions. Like I said, there's no straight answer, like as you expect. But on to the next section of the video. So before we move on to the next part of the video, I want to talk a bit more about Homo erectus, which is meant to be the first humans. So basically here you can see a skull. It's basically of a ape-like creature, and they say this was the first basically human. So it's basically, this was us like 2 million years ago. Whether you want to believe that or not, I personally don't. So basically I've got a photo of a skull here, and it shows their teeth. And basically with this, they can determine what we ate, and I've got it written down right here. So it says the diet of these creatures consisted mainly of fruit, vegetables. They also ate things like flowers, bark, leaves, and when they could, they ate meat. So basically very similar to a chimpanzee's diet, which is not surprising. Anyway, they can tell all this because of the skeleton and the jaw structure. Whether you believe this is an early iteration of us or just a species of chimp that passed, you know, think of it as you will. Now, they say the reason we decide to cook our food this long ago as well is because there was food that basically they somehow figured out was spoiled or going off. They couldn't eat it or they couldn't digest it, so they somehow decided to cook it. And the way they said they would have cooked it was basically over a fire pit. So just like literally just throw it in the fire. That's how they would have done it. But I find it very hard to believe. But you know, take it as you will. I don't think that these creatures, I personally think they're just any type of ape that would have roamed the earth, and they would have just been like anyone else, because humans are very different as they use tools, but they do say they've seen evidence of tools, so it could have been us. You never know. Anyway, let's move on to the next part of the video. Okay, so now we've just got to talk about basically why we have to cook our food and why they say we can't eat certain foods raw, which is why we cook our food. As you know, they say it's because basically it makes the food easier to digest. The reason they say this is because a lot of things like plants basically have cell walls, which actually get broken down when we cook our food. But the thing is, when you cook food, you get rid of a lot of nutrients and bacteria that are actually very good for the body. And that's why they say eating raw food is much better. But basically, also another thing is with cooking your food is it gets rid of bad bacteria. You may have heard this in like chicken. It says they get rid of like salmonella, but the only reason things like that basically contain those sort of things is because they're processed with in such large quantities and they're raised very poorly. That's how they get these diseases. If you basically harvest the animal yourself, you know, go on from like a proper farm, it's not going to contain basically bacteria. And the thing is, when you cook your food, it gets rid of a lot of good bacteria that people actually mistake for bad bacteria, because when they think bacteria, they think, oh, it's bad, you know. That's why this makes this thing very interesting. So chicken is the most well-known meat to be the most dangerous to eat raw. Obviously, as Adrian just stated, salmonella, it's a very dangerous bacteria, and it can cause really negative effects in bad stomach pains and stuff like that. Basically, the reason is chicken is the easiest to catch bacteria is because it has a more porous structure. If you don't know what that means, it means it basically has more pores, more holes for liquids and gases such as bacteria to get in and basically stay inside the meat.
Things like mold to like grow in the food, things like that.
But as Adrian said earlier, if it's a clean animal, you're much less likely to catch any bacteria from it. Not that we'd recommend just eating a massive amount of raw meat when you never tried it, but we'll get into that with some videos a bit later.
They also say when you cook your food, it actually becomes more calorie dense. And the reason for this is usually when we cook with things like oil, we like fry them, which has a lot of calories, but it's actually just getting rid of all the good things and just adding useless crap. So they say you actually get more out of your food, which is not true because all the good stuff you're getting rid of and you're only just adding stuff that's actually bad for you.
Yeah, the only things you're adding are trans fats. You're also taking away a lot of vitamins and stuff like that. Yeah. And when we say they say, we mean basically the government recommendations and all these big well-known recommendations that are basically not third-party information, third-party researchers. It's just the government details and big companies like that. So
yeah, and this is what this video is going to be about. We're going to try to get a lot of other people's opinions and people maybe that aren't as well known in the mainstream community. So we can get a bit of everyone's intake. So then we can come to a conclusion at the end, hopefully. So there is a lot of methods of still maintaining your nutrients and still cooking your food, or in a way preparing it so it doesn't have to be eating in its complete raw form. A way of doing this with vegetables or fruit is having a smoothie. And you may think, oh, perfect, smoothie doesn't get rid of anything, or juice doesn't get rid of anything. But when you blend it, it actually does get rid of all the fruit or vegetables. Fiber, which is very important for a lot of reasons. They say fiber is very good for keeping your digestive system clean. It flushes everything out, so it's very important. So if you're always doing this, maybe think of a different way to source your fiber. Another way is also steaming your food. That's why they always say it's much healthier, because it gets rid of, first of all, much less important nutrients, and you also don't add extra crap on, like, trans fats and all these sort of things.
Boiling isn't actually a great option if you want to keep your nutrients, specifically in vegetables and fruits. Not that you boil fruits that often, but basically vegetables and fruits have a lot of water-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin C and vitamin A, I believe. Yeah, vitamin A and vitamin C are water-soluble vitamins. And basically, a water-soluble vitamins means the vitamin dissolves in water. So when you boil something, the vitamin dissolves, it comes out the food and goes into water, and you basically lose it. That's why it's called an unsustainable or non-structured vitamin or nutrient. It doesn't stay in the food as well. That's why steaming, it's not sitting in water. Steaming, it sits above the water. Steaming is very good because it doesn't add anything extra, doesn't add any trans fat, and it keeps I think basically most of the nutrients. And it's the healthiest way to cook your food.
And it doesn't mean cooking kills all nutrients. Like if you eat a lot of vegetables and things like that and you cook them, it's perfectly fine. But, the reason we invented cooking, it wasn't for the reasons to like keep the most nutrition. And maybe it's a lot healthier to eat raw foods. And if you've ever been on any like a juice cleanse or anything raw, you do feel a lot better, a lot fresher, because when you're cooking things, you're also killing a lot of the important bacteria and things like that, which really bring out the life of the fruit, And also with vegetables, you may ask, well, if I can't cook them, I can't eat them. Well, maybe that's because we shouldn't be eating them at all. If we can't eat it raw, which is literally how every other animal eats everything, whether it's animal or another animal, or like leaves or fruits or anything, or vegetables, So maybe we shouldn't be eating them at all. We're now going to show you a video of this man that only eats raw meat for 90% of his diet. It's very interesting. I'm not sure if I 100% believe him, but he looks pretty legit. Maybe some things in the video is just for video, but for the most part, I think he's doing it. You can
he's definitely eating raw meat. He shows himself eating raw meat. And basically, he believes that he believes that basically raw meat works very well for him, and he used to be like on a standard American diet, you know, with all the processed foods and cooked foods, obviously. And he says this works well for him, and he talks about his basically his diet, so what meat he eats, how he does it, and basically his recommendations for the public. And
We don't want to
watching.
give anything away, and we will reflect on the video right after, but I'll just quickly play it for you.
About 90% of my diet is raw sheep meat. I'm just some buddy living in obscurity, eating my intestine smoothies in my kitchen. My name's Derek Nance. I'm from Lexington in the state of Kentucky. For the last 9 years, I've been sourcing and butchering and eating raw animals, and I've never felt healthier. This is a ram's testicle from a 3-year-old ram. It has a more salty taste. It's not like red meat, it's more of like a seafood almost. Growing up, I just had the standard American diet, had allergies and headaches and asthma and other signs of, food intolerance issues where I noticed certain foods were really giving me trouble. I'll chew a wad like rawhide, and I'll just chew it like gum throughout the day. I think it helps polish my teeth. Finally, I came across the Weston Price Foundation, and they do studies of indigenous diets. Eventually discovered the meat-based diet and just decided that, I'll give it a try. I was having so much trouble digesting everything else that meat seemed to work well for me, and I just felt like this was it. All right, so ready to prepare a stomach smoothie? You can smell it too. So here's the small intestine, the whole parts, different parts of the intestines. They all go into my smoothie. And I can eat this and be fine with it without any fear that the bacteria are going to come out to get me, because I actually think that they're beneficial. So I just make it into a smoothie, and it just makes it like all creamed together, and it's just much more consistent, easier, like a quick on-the-go snack. And my girlfriend made me designate a blender because I used to use her blender, and it holds that residual stomach smell. Save that for dessert. I believe that the nourishment that are in raw animal foods is far superior because there's certain nutrients that when undergoing the cooking process gets cooked out. I could sit here and chew on this bone for a good 15-20 minutes like a dog. But I'm gonna crack it open and get some of the marrow out. Instead of just going to the store and picking out a prepackaged chunk of meat with a label on it, I prefer to go directly to the source. I'll drive out to small family farms. I load up the animals in my truck and I take them back to the house here, and I butcher them in the backyard. It's fun. Whenever I get a fresh animal in, I prefer eating, the whole animal with all the organs and all the different tissues, because it adds variety to a diet that you'd think would be bland. This is the kidney and the kidney fat, and it's really nutritious and it's a good part of the diet, but it might be an acquired taste for some. Hey, where am I going to sit? Over.
Right here, next to me, next to me.
Well, let me sit in between. I have 4 kids, and I live with my partner. My girlfriend was primarily vegetarian.
I would have probably remained a vegetarian if Derek hadn't come into my life. I think that the way Derek harvests meat is much more ethical than buying it from a grocery store.
Here's my skinning rack, and I got there's where that knife went. Depending on the size of the animal, a full-grown sheep around 175 pounds for, I don't know, about $200. I mean, 200 American dollars, and you can live off of that for about a month. And that's 90% of my food. I've had my kids be a part of the process since they were real little.
I'm pretty sure everyone would think it's strange.
Hey, let's go see if we can find some eggs for me.
Oh, can we eat them raw?
If you want.
I've never seen them eat anything else.
We're used to it.
One of my friends, he said it was kind of weird. I said, yeah, it is weird.
My chicken's coming.
Yeah, they're fresh.
They're so pretty.
I had issues with the teachers reporting me because they found out that I was butchering animals in front of the kids. All that's been resolved after I've explained to the social workers it's what I do to harvest my foods. It's hard to be the odd child whose dad does a lot of crazy things, and I don't see why a child couldn't eat raw meat as much as they want, as long as it comes from a good, clean animal. We've been raised under the paradigm that germs are the root cause of all disease. We've decided to just sterilize everything to cook the life out of it. So this compost heap's been going for about 5 years, and it's really rich. Like I'll bury whole bones down here, kind of like a dog, if I feel like I need something to chew on. And I don't really eat the meat, but I do eat the maggots. These maggots are evolved to digest rotten flesh. I could probably utilize those digestive enzymes and bacteria to digest my own food. But I wouldn't recommend it to just anybody. For the most part, I react very well to raw meat. This is my fresh liver. I like to do a little aged meat with each of my meals, so I leave this liver hanging up here for about 2 months, and it ferments and it has a probiotic-like effect. See, there's actually mold growing on it, and sometimes I'll just eat it right off the beef. I'll eat it, and just the taste of it just wakes me up. Some people drink coffee, other people, have their morning stimulant, and this is mine. I haven't had any real adverse effects. There's only been a couple instances of like diarrhea and a food poisoning from eating old raw chicken that I shouldn't have left in the fridge for a week. I hope to eat the raw meat diet for the rest of my life. No, I mean, I've invested 10 years in it, and now I'm really curious to see, how far I can push it. Say if I could live to be 80 years old, then it would validate a lot of the theories that I have about this diet and how it is viable.
So we just saw that video. It's a nice video. We'll put a link in the description if this is on YouTube. And so he's a 35-year-old man. I just want to point out his skin looks pretty young. Not to be weird or anything for a 35-year-old. And
it looks to be because of his diet, because it's raw. He gets all these good nutrients and bacteria that a lot of people don't get with their diets. Makes it very, very good for skin. So as you can see, it's worked.
It could be genetics, but because think of it how you want. But
his past ancestors and family members could have been eating a lot more meat, so it works better for him. But like he said, it's not anyone can do it. Most people can, but he just especially works very well with meat. Anyway, go on.
If I were to go on a raw meat diet or try to eat raw meat, I definitely wouldn't just go 90% at the start. Maybe you would start eating a bit more. Say you're eating a steak, maybe eat it medium rare and then go down to rare, and then eventually start eating raw meat. You could also eat very thin slices of raw meat to see how your body reacts. And it's very good to try new diets and to see how your body reacts and how it feels. Because as you said, we're raised under the paradigm that we should be afraid of like bacteria and all this
cause
stuff.
all these diseases and sicknesses, But really, it's like with anything, we build immunity to us to it, and it makes us stronger. You know, he said like with the maggots, it's a bit disgusting, but I wouldn't do it, and I would say anyone should do it. But he does it. He says they've evolved to digest flesh because he eats a lot of raw meat, you know, so he needs. Basically, this makes it easier for him to digest, and he says if he eats them, he could use their enzymes and bacteria to basically help him digest me in the future, which is a bit weird, but you know, seems to work. He obviously takes it to another level. A lot of people say that we're not actually meant for eating meat, and that humans are basically only meant to eat fruit. We'll actually talk about that in a second. We're just gonna talk about this person. We're not gonna play a video because it's a 40-minute long video and it's sort of draggy, but we'll just summarize it for you. Basically, he talks about how humans should mainly be eating fruit and vegetables, and that we're frutivores. Obviously, people have evolved, and we can pretty much, since we are omnivores, we can eat both meat and fruit. So like we said earlier, his ancestors could have been eating a lot more things like meat, so maybe that's why it's easier. But personally, I feel like if I were to do a not raw meat, but just raw-based diet, I'd definitely eat a lot more fruit and vegetables, since in the past it's worked well for me. So yeah, anything you want to add?
I could add that basically he was saying how he believes that that when you cook meat, and there are a lot of studies and evidence to back his point up. When you cook meat, it cooks the life out of it. It breaks down a lot of the meat and kills a lot of the nutrients. And we'll go into that a bit later, but I definitely agree with him on that point.
Yeah, and it kills a lot of the bacteria, like he said, that he actually used to his benefit, which I think we should be doing. It's also just with other things like these days, like we're so, you know, scared of all these bacteria, like we're always, just like sanitizing our hands, especially now. We're like scared of everything, wearing masks, you know, all this stuff. It's like we should, in my opinion, be a lot less, you know, worry about these things, and we should actually be more open to them, since will make our immune systems a lot stronger. In my opinion, I feel like the human immune system has gotten a lot weaker because we're so like scared of everything. And once our body actually is exposed to something, you know, bad, more deadly.
Yeah, because we're not wild animals. We're not used to the harsh environment. So I think when like health specialists in the government say that we can't handle raw things because of the bacteria, I think we should definitely give it a try. And I'm not saying like eat a whole raw chicken and get sick and then sue me or whatever. Like, can't sue me, but because I'm too young. But you know, sue someone for it. But I think we should definitely look. People should always be open-minded and look into things like this, because people don't know everything. You may have like things written down and what experts say, and
they're called facts. But
yeah, but we don't know everything. So we definitely have to try new things, and I think this video is a great example of pushing the limits of the human digestive system and just humans in general. So a lot of experts say if you've got to eat raw meat, you should also eat vegetables. So now we're going to talk about what if you only just ate vegetables and raw fruits. So there was this interview on YouTube. If this is on YouTube, as I said, I'll put a link to it. And basically, it's this Dr. Doug Graham. He's a GP, a chiropractor, a lifelong athlete, and mentor, and advisor to world-class athletes. I don't have the list right now, but I've seen he has coached professional basketball players, I believe a professional soccer player or tennis player. Yeah, tennis player of some sort, and some other athletes. And basically, he's famous for many books, especially the 80-10-10 diet. I believe that's 80% fruit, 10%. Well, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's a vegetable and fruit-based raw diet. You can check that out if you want. And in this interview on this channel with Raw Vegan Doctor, he talks about basically the benefits of a raw vegan diet and compares it with a cooked food diet, which is important.
Talking to the camera, you're way too far away. You gotta be here. You're over there.
You'll be louder, trust me.
It won't be. Come closer.
Adrian, I'm just as far away as you are.
You know, I'm here. You're there, and you're talking the other direction. At least talk this direction. Look at the camera. There. Come on.
All right, so let's get into some of his arguments. So he says that every species except for humans have an according diet based on their anatomy and physiology. The doctor says that we have teeth that look like other animals that eat fruits and vegetables, such as monkeys and other primates. Because we don't have big canines like wild dogs and all these.
We do to
meat-
a certain extent, but not
Extent,
to like
yeah.
chew like raw meat like the other guy. So he says like that's why he makes stomach smoothies if he does, because it's very hard to chew. And that's why a lot of people say we should only be eating fruit and vegetables, because like our jaw structure and our teeth construction and like the shape of our teeth are like primates or like monkeys, like chimps, like apes. So
Yeah.
we should basically be eating only fruit and vegetables like they do.
He also goes on to say we have hands, fingers, and nails. We have binary birth systems, so basically we don't give birth to 8 and 10 like a lot of other animals in the wild do, like most animals in the wild. We give birth to 1 or 2. Everything about us, he says, points us to being consumers of fruits and vegetables. It is known that we're omnivores. We eat meat, we eat vegetables, we eat a variety of food, as I said earlier, not a specific diet. And basically, Dr. Graham, he says that it is known that predators' preferred food are small and easy to catch, such as wolves. Like they eat, you might have heard of them eating big animals, right? But their preferred food is mice, a very small animal, obviously, because it's easier to catch and they are much less likely to getting injured, which is an injury could be very dangerous for an animal in the wild. You're most likely, say you get bitten in the leg, you're most likely going to die because there are obviously no doctors in the wild. And a bear's favorite food is a squirrel, also a very small animal. He says that the same applies to humans. He said he could easily creep up on a raspberry, but I couldn't catch a squirrel. He's basically saying right now we're omnivores, we eat other foods, we eat meat. And obviously meat is easier in this modern world to obtain. We just go to the supermarket, we buy meat, but we don't have to go hunt for meat. Like picking fruit is obviously way easier than hunting an animal or even raising an animal. And like we do, we have chicken farms, cow farms, we raise them to butcher them. So that's much easier than hunting, but it's still not if you talk about our ancestors, basically, I think it would be much easier for them to get fruit and vegetables because as we said earlier, the Homo erectus, their main diet was fruits and vegetables.
Whether we came from this or not, it's still humans are meant to be pretty similar to
primates and Homo erectuses, if that's what they're called, if that's what they actually are. And basically, he says that it's a preferred food because it's much easier to obtain and we're much less likely to get injuries. So we should be eating a lot more of that. And he doesn't believe we should eat any meat.
There's also you may think that, well, there's so many benefits of meat, like it's good for your brain, we need it for like to have energy, proteins. But there's so many like athletes, as this guy trains a lot of athletes, I'm assuming he puts them on vegan diets because he's vegan. It's because vegan diets actually work and they do give enough, and some people work better than others, but there's top tier athletes that have full on vegan diets, full on raw diets,
Yeah, we believe that there's not one answer that everyone should be on this diet, everyone should be on this diet. I'm getting to the point where I do believe that raw food is very good. I think if we want to look into this more, we should try eating a little bit more raw food. I don't think that vegan or raw vegan will be for everyone because some people will feel lack of energy, some people feel more energy, some people will lose too much weight, some people might even gain weight because of the fructose. But Dr. Graham has something to say about that. I'll get into in a second.
He proves a common, basically a myth that eating too much fruit is bad for you because of the sugar.
Yeah,
you want to talk about it?
Yep. He says that Dr. Graham doesn't agree with people that say too much fruit is bad because of the sugar, the fructose it contains. He argues that the World Health recommendations of the health recommendations of the World Health Organization, the WHO, end up being around 80% of our calorie intake being carbs. So basically, if you go on the World Health Organization, they have food intake, 20% grain, 50% grain, whatever it is, 20% vegetables, whatever it is.
We'll put a photo of the basically.
Pyramid.
I'm pretty sure it's a pyramid. It shows the recommendation of each category of how much you should be eating of each.
Yeah, and Dr. Graham says that 80% of the calorie intake is carbs, and our body, if you didn't know, it turns carbs into sugar glucose anyway.
That's why we refer to carbs as energy, because basically in our body, that's what it does. Because sugar, it converts it into sugar glucose, which gives our body energy pretty much. So if anything, eating fruit is just basically the same thing, but just taking out the middleman, is giving you the sugar glucose straight away. And that way it's a lot easier on your body. And, as we know,
it's
fruits are much better than all these cooked rice and all this stuff, because it's raw and it's all natural.
Now I want to talk about when people say, talk about a point that a lot of people say in the medical community. They say that we got smarter because we ate cooked food. And this is going off the theory that we started cooking around 2 million years ago. So
around that.
Dr. Graham, he answered by asking a question. He said, we got smarter from eating cooked food, but how do we get smart enough to eat cooked food? Dr. Graham says that paleontologists, the people that study the history of the earth, like, for example, early humans, don't agree, as far as he knows, that's what he said, don't agree with the theory that we became more intelligent from cooked food. He says that paleontologists believe that it was a discovery of a denser food source where we could get more calories per bite. Because obviously when you get more calories, you get more energy, you evolve, you grow, your brain grows, you get more intelligent. And basically he talks about how that food source is mainly fruit. Some of the evidence he included in the argument for fruit being the denser food source was that a bonobo, that's how you pronounce it, it's a primate, and it has 99.4% of the same genetic material as we do. Gorillas have something like 97%. Some other monkeys have like 98%. So monkeys are our closest relative.
It says 99.4%. You're like, oh, that must be super close. But when it comes in,
we have like billions of neurons in us. So 99.4% is actually not that close if you think about it.
Like, we might say a starfish might be 80%. Or same as us, but we look nothing like that. So, just because they say that doesn't mean we are as close as you might think.
Yeah, so a bonobo has 99.4% of the same genetic material as we do. I think they're a species of chimpanzee, that's what they are. And that's our closest relative, the bonobo. They have the most genetic material that's the same as ours. He says that the bonobo's diet is 90% fruit, and the rest consisting of a bit of leaves and some nuts, or not nuts, but whatever they find in the wild. Basically no meat.
You also notice with people who eat fruit, a lot of them have much, clearer skin, people who eat all this raw food, because they don't have all these cooked like trans fats to make you age. A lot of people, and there's a lot of studies to prove this, say that meat really makes you age. But you saw with the other guy, if he really does eat all raw meat, which I think he does, he seems to look very young, very alive, very healthy. It just proves that it can't be exactly the same for all people. It varies with different people, So whatever works best for you. So that's why it's very important to try basically all these diets and not just go off the recommendations. Especially like he said, he had basically had the average American diet, which I'm sure consisted of a lot of processed food, as well as a lot of grains and carbohydrates. Now, that didn't work well for him because he said he had a lot of problems like asthma, skin problems, all these other problems that you shouldn't be having. So, you really just have to find what's best for you.
Yeah, I have another argument here about the fruit. So, some of you may ask questions or bring up the argument that fruit, well, that isn't enough calories. We need to incorporate meat. It can't just be fruit. You gotta have to eat so much fruit. In the wild, basically, animals and monkeys specifically, because they are a very high percentage of their diet is fruit, they basically eat whenever they find food or whenever they're hungry. And I think monkeys eat something like because fruit has a lot of different like vitamins and minerals that other foods don't, like a very high number of I think they have a very high number of potassium, a very high number of vitamin C and things like that. Basically they have like in a day, like this is percentage, this is not like their weight compared to our weight, so we have more. This is level to level. They eat like something like 8 times more potassium than us and like 10 times more vitamin C than us, like a crazy amount. So basically, and their metabolism is much higher than us, so they can eat any time of the day and they end up eating a lot more than us. So we eat meat. We have eating schedules. Basically, we eat 3 times a day. Well, that's what most people do. And basically, we eat 3 times a day. We get calories from a certain amount of meals. We get one meal, we have this many calories. In a day, we have around 2,000 calories. In the wild, you basically eat whenever you're hungry, and they have a very fast metabolism in the wild.
And you've seen how strong the chimpanzee are. You know, I'm pretty sure this one chimp is like 8 times stronger than humans, and you know we're probably around the same. We're a bit bigger, but like we're similar in size, and that it just shows how much more like dense their muscle is because they get all these nutrients from eating all this fruit. And a lot of people say calories. It's like, oh well, you have to eat to maintain weight. You have to eat as much calories as you burn off in the day. Well, if you burn 2,500 calories a day, but you only eat 1,000, you're not going to keep losing weight. People say once you have your base weight, that's the healthy weight you should be at. You like all the extra calories, that's just the excess weight you shouldn't have, you know. So once that all comes off, you feel much healthier, and that's basically your real weight and what you should be at. So all these calories don't really mean much. Really, it's just more the nutrients that you intake, and it makes your immune system stronger, makes you stronger, and makes you much healthier. So you know, it's very interesting.
So now we've looked at the raw meat diet. We've looked at a raw fruit and vegetable diet, and now let's talk about it. So basically, a lot of experts that give recommendations to people that want to go on the raw meat diet recommend that they also incorporate fruit and vegetables and some raw grains into the diet to balance their nutrition intake. One of the reasons for this is to avoid just eating raw meat is because they say obviously meat is very high in protein, and it's actually known that a lot of protein can be bad. There's a wide range of problems that it can cause. It can be from the smallest of headache, and this video that I watched, it says possibly death. That's probably unlikely, but that's why, as I said,
Depends
it's very
on your current condition. Yeah.
Very wide range of medical
Side
issues that it can cause. So that's why a lot of experts say it's important to include raw vegetables, raw fruit, and raw grains.
The thing is, all these different variety of foods might not work well. Like that's why so many people are lactose intolerant, or they get really bad effects from eating like too much fruit, or you know they can't eat certain meats. It's really hard for them to digest. So it's really weird because it's very personalized, these things.
A lot of these raw foods and raw diet enthusiasts have obviously they have reasonings for going on this diet. They say it's for nutrition purposes. They feel like they lack nutrients or they lack something in their normal diet. And basically, when you cook your food, the heat kills nutrients and the natural enzymes. And natural enzymes are very important. They help you with digestion. They help fight against chronic illnesses. And some raw food enthusiasts believe that eating raw natural food helps clear up headaches and allergies, boost immunity and memory. We're not saying help with arthritis and diabetes. When we talk about arthritis and diabetes, they're not saying, you'll get rid of your diabetes, you'll be cured.
There's extra nutrients that, you know, go towards these things. You know?
They're basically saying for the arthritis, for the diabetes, for those medical conditions that are hard to cure, basically they're saying it'll sustain a healthy, you know, not up and down levels of, say, diabetes, like you're having problems, like you're really bad one day and it's an emergency. They're saying it'll sustain a okay level, so it won't go out of hand. That's what they're saying, and it'll help, you know, control it.
And there's also a lot of theories saying that we shouldn't, you know, eat meat because it's, you know, dead. You know, it's not a live thing. Things like fruits, they're, you know, fresh. They're you know, it's just something about eating them. When you eat things like meat, like a lot of people say, it just makes you just doesn't make you feel alive. It makes you like tired. Makes you, you know, makes you feel heavy. Just something about eating fruits. If you've ever been on a raw, or if you eat a lot of fruit, or you have a lot of smoothies, or you just eat a lot of raw food, and then you go back to something like eating a lot of meat, it just makes you feel something sluggish, like sort of lethargic. It's just a different effect. It almost seems like this is what we should be eating, you know?
Say you wake up late, right? You're having a late breakfast, and if you eat a big meal, you're probably going to be tired, right? Like when I get up, I eat like 12 o'clock, very late breakfast, and I would say eat steak and potatoes because it's like it's like lunchtime, and you know, you would eat steak and potatoes. I would feel tired. I'd just lie on the couch, and I'll feel lethargic, as Adrian just said, and basically you feel tired everywhere. You don't want to do anything. When I eat a fruit bowl, it's obviously fructose, so that first of all gives you an energy boost, and it's very fresh. It has all these vitamins that basically just boost everything. And
Makes
it's
you
known.
just feel light on your feet as well. And people say it's like when you eat, it's like when you eat a chocolate bar, you get like a sugar rush for like 30 minutes, but then you have a really fast crash, and all of a sudden you're really tired. With this, like they say the same thing would happen, but it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like, especially since you could have so much of it, like you might be like, say you're on a juice diet and you basically just have like 8 juices a day. You know, you always have energy and you never feel that crash. You just feel light on your feet, full of energy, full of life all day. So, you know, they say it's like eating. It's like you have all these sugar crashes like eating chocolate bar, but it's really a different effect. You just feel like full of life all day. So I recommend trying for yourself.
And some of you might be wondering, say you want to go on a raw foods diet, just eating, raw fruits, raw vegetables, possibly raw meat, but raw fruits, raw vegetables, raw nuts, stuff like that. You may be wondering about dairy. What about my beloved milk? What about, cheese and all this stuff? Well, you might think that's raw. It's not cooked, right? But the thing is, they consider pasteurized, like milk products, cow products, dairy products, to be not cooked, but along the same thing. So if you want to go on this diet, the people who go on this diet, they include unpasteurized dairy foods like raw eggs, raw milk that hasn't been processed. Just maybe you can boil it if you don't want to,
or straight from
if you
the
don't
cow.
want to catch anything.
Or straight from the cow.
Yeah, straight from the cow, basically. Yeah, so
it's a mix with
with.
vegan, vegetarian, but it's all raw, you know?
In this article, they basically show a raw food diet. They say the raw vegetables, the milk that's from this website, they recommend that, and they say if you want to, you can basically lightly cook. Well, this isn't cook actually. It says some people on the raw food diet say you can eat food under the temperature of 118 degrees Fahrenheit, 47 degrees Celsius, to be considered raw. So if it's over that, it's considered cooked. You can use blenders, food processors, and food dehydrators to prepare your food.
Also, another fun fact about losing nutrients in your food. When you refrigerate food, it actually can lose up to 3/4 of its nutritional value. That's why they say freezing food only gets rid of 25%, 1/4 of its nutrients, and it's a really good way of preserving food. So if you didn't know, refrigerating your food is actually not too good. So you want to eat it as soon as possible, as fresh as possible. But that's why if you still want to, keep a large amount for a long time, freezing is a very good way. No one really talks about it. It's weird.
Yeah, and for cooking, you got to lose the least nutrients is in steaming food. You don't put in water, so you don't lose as much of the water-soluble vitamins that are easy to lose when cooking, like boiling, because it sits in the water and it just gets boiled out of the meat, right? If you're cooking meat, so steaming is the best option. It's the lightest. You will feel the best from it. From lots of people's experience, just ask anyone who steams their food. Try it for yourself. It's definitely the best way of cooking.
There's also a lot of ways of still eating your food raw. Like there's a lot of Japanese methods. There's things like sashimi, which if you didn't know, is not just salmon. There's multiple types of fish. There's also chicken sashimi. There's beef sashimi. There's something called beef carpaccio. It's just like really thin sliced beef. So you can still have like tasty raw meat meals. You don't fully have to eat, raw sheep testicles.
Yeah, or a giant raw steak and just eat it all day, Yeah, so there's lots of variations that aren't cooked, and you keep a lot of your nutrients, such as thinly slicing raw meat to enjoy that, steaming your food, and also just very lightly cooking if you still like the taste of maybe frying or something like that. But when you cook things, you basically kill it in the inside. That's what the short answer of losing nutrients is. You're basically killing it. You're breaking through the fibers, ripping it apart inside. Basically, you're losing a lot of the nutrients. A lot of nutrients stays, such as it's called fat soluble nutrients. It stays in the fat. So unless the fat fully melts, it's basically got to stay in there. A lot of it's got to stay in there. But a lot of the nutrients, such as in refrigerating and the water soluble vitamins from boiling, such as vitamin C and I think A. If I got that wrong, we'll put the right vitamin on the screen, but definitely vitamin C. They're water soluble. So when you're cooking, definitely watch out for losing nutrients. There's this government website. It's called the USDA.gov, and if you go, I'll leave a link to that. Basically, it's a link. It shows all the foods and the different cooking processes and how much of the nutrients gets taken out. I'm not gonna go through it because there's so much, and for some reason it doesn't let me open the file. It just doesn't work for me. So you have to read through the document and figure out how to understand everything it's written, because it's written quite complexly, and it basically shows how much calcium is lost, how much iron is lost from freezing, from refrigerating, from boiling, from frying, all the good stuff. So there's over 290 different foods there and different cooking methods. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out.
What people don't understand, you're like, oh, well, you've got your vitamins, you got vitamin C, D, A, whatever, but that's not actually the most important vitamins. The very important vitamins are things like bacteria and enzymes, like that guy was talking about earlier, because that's actually what, also it builds your immune system stronger. It makes you, less likely to catch things because you're immune to everything, and it's just a very healthy way to live. So don't worry about a bit of mold. It's just mold.
It may take some time to get used to some of these things. You may get stomach aches or even worse. But that's, as a lot of people say, as a lot of raw meat enthusiasts say, once you just get into it, you slowly get used to it, and it becomes natural. That's why we eventually evolved. If we ate raw meat, we evolved from eating raw meat.
But if it's full on giving you problems, maybe it's just not for you, and it's not what your body wants you to be eating.
It's very important to listen to your body and how it reacts to different things.
Yeah, that's all we have to say about this topic.
So that's got to conclude the video for today. I know it might be a bit long, it might be a bit draggy, but this is more of a conversation. This is more of a conversation, and it is our first time. We're not experts. We've been researching this on a week. So you can definitely look into this yourself. We'll leave some links. That's if this is posted on YouTube.
We may go further into this topic in the future, possibly.
Yeah. So what we've learned from this video, basically, raw diets can be very nutritious,
and it does seem like the more natural way, like the way we should be eating, and it does seem to have way more benefits, and there's really no reason not to be doing it. We've gotten used to the taste of raw foods, and we've gotten used to cooking our food, buying everything from the supermarket, when it seems like we should really just be eating more raw fruits and veggies. But of course, like we've mentioned a lot of times, it's what feels best for you. I feel like most people will react better to eating a lot of raw fruit and vegetables, less to raw meat. I feel like that guy's more of an exception. But whatever works for you.
If you don't want to go down the raw meat path, but you do want to go down the raw food path, I recommend eating raw fruits, raw vegetables, raw nuts, and things like that. Maybe some sprouted things. And basically, you can have steamed. If you still want to cook and you still don't want to go vegetarian or vegan, you can still cook your meats, but steam them. That's the best recommendation. It's the healthiest. It's the most beneficial way to get the most nutrients.
And you don't always have to eat raw food, but it's obviously better to eat a lot more raw fruit and raw vegetables. And you can still cook your meat. If I were to do this diet, and I'm actually thinking about it, I would still have meat, but definitely not as much. And I would probably cook it when I have it. But I'd probably find the lightest way to cook it, like steaming it or very lightly grilling it, so it doesn't lose its nutritional value, and it still doesn't seem like you've cooked the life out of it.
There are people that say that cooked food gives you more nutrients, but
or calories.
More. Yeah, they say because it gives you more calories. I personally don't agree with that argument, because the only calories that you get from cooking is basically fats that you don't need and extra things. They say it helps. In some vegetables, basically that there are tough parts of the vegetables that you can't get nutrients from,
and because they are very hard to break down. But
it makes it easier to digest when you cook it. But that's obviously a personal preference. People see a lot of this government information and all these mainstream data is basically they're acting like it all has to work for one person. Like, eat this much vegetables, eat this much meat, don't eat raw meat because it can do this. But then they would say it could work. It could work for some people,
And you're not going to get these harmful bacteria if you get it from a farm. If you're buying...
You can, but it's much more unlikely.
It's very unlikely. So if you're getting it from... But if you're getting it from a supermarket where they've go through many different processing, processes, and they're not fed the greatest things, and, they're basically just made for mass production. That's how these animals obtain these bad bacteria or disease, whatever you want to call them.
You don't find
you don't find all these bacteria in the wild or in the like fresh little farms with like fresh meat and vegetables.
Because they're healthy, thriving
You find it
animals,
in these mass production chicken farms, where they're fed steroids and all the things in bad
all this
conditions.
crap, and they're like given growth hormones, so they grow up literally in like a fifth of the normal healthy.
Yeah, it's either a
time frame.
fifth or the sixth of the time of normal growth of a chicken.
Yeah, so there's many documentaries you can watch if you're interested in the topic. Anyway, that's got to sum up today's video. You can make your own opinion. We've shared ours. Think what you will. Hopefully you enjoyed, and we'll see you for another video soon, hopefully.
See you soon.